Hello and welcome. To explain the benefits of tuning into today's episode, I'm going to ask you a question right now, and that is your house in order? And what I mean by that is your business in order so that, let's say you wanted to sell it tomorrow, you wanted to know what it was worth, or you wanted to know, would somebody even consider buying it? It's important to run a business in a way that it was always kind of ready to sell. It wasn't about, I want to sell. It was really about this being a rule of the game. It truly is good business practice to do this. In today's episode, I'm going to interview a standout individual, and we're going to have a chat about what this all means, what it looks like, and what the benefits to you of actually investing just a tiny bit of energy in making sure that your house is in order, right? So I would love for you to tune into this episode, as I really believe that the education I serve up with the help of my guest has the potential to really help you to do better in business. You've tuned into the Better in Business podcast, and I'm your host, Jeannie Savage. I'm a multi-award winning business veteran and head of the Strategic Bookkeeper Network. My network of strategic bookkeepers is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs do better in business. This podcast aims to challenge your thinking. If you're not thinking the right way, how can you act the right way? Each episode will dive into key drivers of success, which I also call the rules of the game. Learn the rules and play to win. Let's go. I like to start every episode by reminding you that it is globally recognized that pillar number one for success is up-to-date, accurate bookkeeping, which is the only way you can see how your business is performing in terms of profit and cash. If your books aren't right up to date, visit betterinbusiness.global, drop me a line, and I'll connect you with a certified strategic bookkeeper. Fire your bookkeeper and hire a strategic bookkeeper. Bookkeeping is a cost, whereas strategic bookkeeping is an investment that averages a 10x return on the fees. My guest today, Zoran Sarabaca, is a business broker and registered valuer with experience as a fellow of the Australian Institute of Business Brokers. He has served on the AIBB board for 5 years, including 2 as chair. He is also an author, and that is author of The 7-Step Guide to Selling Your Business. And he's the owner-editor of the Australian Business for Sale, Coast to Coast Business Sales. In my own words, Zoran is a standout business veteran in his area. Absolutely. He is in my little black book and I will be keeping in touch with Zoran, and what he has to share with us today is exceptional. So I have a great guest on the show today, and something we'll be talking about. You know, I'm all about the rules of the game and challenging your thinking and what you think you know in order to redirect you if you need to be redirected. Now, I learned early on in business that one of the rules of the game is that we always want to be, especially in my role as a bookkeeper, is preparing a business for sale, even if you're not planning to sell it. Okay, so the what, the how, the why will become apparent during the show. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Zoran onto the show.
Hey, thanks, Jenny.
Awesome. And yeah, I would just love, Zoran, for you to first just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, we sell businesses and we do business valuations. Name of the business is Exclusive Business Sales. We've been operating for close to 20 years, not quite 20 years. I think it's about 18 years now. And we're a national company, 30 associates in we cover whole of Australia. We got the people in every major city and regional areas. So we operate in the space of value of the business, $1. Some believe it or not, sometimes people just want to exit business for one reason or the other. So as low as we're going to go is $1 or no dollar. And our top limit is about $20 million value of the business. We do about 100 deals a year. And yeah, that's in brief what we do.
Yeah, right. So about 0 to 20 mil. Okay, that is really interesting. And before the show, we were talking, about the link between you and I and what we do and the importance of having the books in order in terms of selling your business. And I think a couple of things I really want to talk about is, look, as I say in my intro for this podcast, if your books aren't up to date and accurate, then absolutely that's your first job, right? I know that you've got, I guess, information, you've got stories about when people come to you and their books aren't in order, the barrier that presents in terms of selling the business. And then the other thing I just want to touch on, relevant to that is just that, yes, your book should be in a state, say like your house. Do you know what? I say my house is always in a state that I could move house tomorrow and I wouldn't be one of those people that went, oh my goodness, I've got 3 months of cleaning ahead of me, right? I actually, I'm not the tidiest person in the world, but I am constantly just kind of getting rid of stuff, making sure things are pretty good. Sure, half the garage has got some stuff in it, but my house is in order and your business house needs to be in order. Primarily, that's your numbers. So yeah, I'd love to hear your take on that.
That's very good analogy. How many times we, I'm going to repair this, I'm going to repair this, and then you live with unrepaired stuff until you need to move, and then you repair it for somebody else. So don't be that person. All right?
Yeah.
But look, business books and records are window into your business, regardless if you're looking from the outside in or you're inside the business. So analogy that's always used, it's like, you wouldn't drive the car without a petrol gauge and speedo on it. So why do we run a business without having the books and records up to date? So you don't know what's happening in the business unless you have a good feedback, and that comes through accurate and timely books. Now, when you take a business to the market, that becomes even more pressing, because person from the outside, somebody buying your business, they come from the point of distrust. They actually, naturally, they don't believe everything you say. All right. So your job as a seller of the business is to increase their desire to own their business, but decrease that mistrust. And the only way you can do that is by being open and honest. And the only way that you can really demonstrate that is by giving them accurate and timely numbers. And numbers in the books tell you way more than just the profitability of the business, but it tells you about the efficiency of the business, tells you about the risks associated with the business. Looking at the businesses from the buyer's point of view, if I was a buyer and I'm looking at the business, that the books and records are 3 months old, what would you think? First thing, what happened in the last 3 months? Why are they not showing me this? If I asked for the information, said, okay, look, I'm really interested in this business, but can you give me updated figures? And that takes 3 months or 2 months or any period of time. It's delayed. It's not instant. The first thing that the buyer will think is, why it took so long? All right.
They do. Disorganized credibility. Credibility is,
did they make them up? All right. Did
yes.
they took them? And in most of the cases that we've been involved, there's nothing sinister going on. It's just that people are not organized well. Now, from the buyer's point of view, they are about to invest hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars into it. They're really worried. So every wrong move will damage your credibility. And books and records, accurate books and records, and up to date, I can't stress more, up to date books and records are very, very important at that period of your business life when you're exiting.
Yes. And, I'd go, like, if we wanted to go, say, one step further, and I'll give another example. So I went along to a business networking breakfast this morning to support my right hand who goes there as well. And I actually train bookkeepers globally to make networking work. And I arrive 10 minutes early. Okay. And that builds credibility for me, right? In terms of bookkeeping, because we're all about strategic bookkeeping. So what we love is when we get our clients actually engaged in the numbers. And one thing we do is we take accurate books, right? Which is really important, pillar one for success of any business. But then we make those numbers even more meaningful. So we go about really being careful around the way those categorization of numbers works. An example is that we might say, okay, well, the owner's wage is up in cost of sales with wages, right? And that might be where wages should sit. But actually, the owner does a role that's more operational. Therefore, we're going to pull that wage out and pop it in the right area of operations expenses. Now, when you look at those numbers and say a prospective buyer or even yourself, Zoran, looks at those numbers, you're able to go, oh, okay, so that is the owner's wage. And the owner is, let's say, only working 4 hours a week because they've scaled beautifully. And therefore, we can really understand what those numbers are telling us. And so in terms of credibility, if your numbers aren't just up to date and accurate, if they're meaningful, in my books, I'll tell you a trade secret. I use the symbol AB for add back before an expense that, is like.
Is that like a job number or job code, AB?
I might say AB travel or AB staff amenities. And it's like, do you know what? It's tax deductible. It's genuine. But would it really, a business broker like yourself could look at mine and go, oh my goodness, it's there, ready to go. Yeah. Yes, I am not the plumber with the leaky taps. I'm really cautious. And I learned early on, our family, they grew their business from 10 to 100 million. We sold it to a public company. I learned early on, you prepare a business for sale from the beginning, not when you want to sell it. So, I'm so passionate about this stuff.
There's one thing that I'm going to push back on that, all right? So, I know that you like different views on this podcast and challenges.
Yeah.
A lot of people say you should start preparing your business for sale the moment you start it. I've got a little problem with that. I don't think you should start the moment you start. When you start the business, just stay afloat, all right? Just survive the initial period. So pay that bills, get that customer, do whatever you want. Don't worry about selling your businesses. Once when the business becomes profitable, that's the moment that you got to start preparing it for sale. And the best business to sell is the one that you don't want to sell. The one that's not relying on you that much, the one that you're enjoying and say, I can run this forever. Well, that's the most valuable business to everybody. So that's what you got to strive to. So I do agree with you. Just don't start too early. If you just started the business today, do not prepare it for the business. Just stay afloat. You got more important.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Occasionally I've had a client want to talk, wants a whole lot of advice on tax minimization and they're not making money yet. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. There's nothing to worry about.
When you've got a tax problem,
that's what we got to talk about.
Right now you've got a revenue problem. Go and worry about that, right? So totally get it. But what you said there, it was gold. I feel like we need to kind of sit on that and rinse and repeat for a minute. So that was, the time to sell your business potentially is when you don't want to sell it because it is such a great prospect for sale. That's in my own words. And I would love for you just to tell us a little bit more there.
Well, look, what brings the value to the business? It's ability of the business to generate a profit once when the ownership change hands. And that's an important part. It's not the profitability of the business when the current owner runs it, but what's going to happen when we change the ownership. Now, if that business runs with minimal input from the current owner, obviously the profit's going to be transferred easier or continuation of those profits or transfer of continuation of those profits going to be easier. And that's the valuable business. Now, I just want to bring back your books and records and everything else in the play because it is a really important thing to us. So in order for you to run a business kind of remotely, you really have to have a good feedback. So better strategic records you got, better view into business you got, easiest to run. So for example, you just mentioned AB for all the outbacks. That's a really important thing. All right. Even if you're not selling a business, you want to know what you're really getting out of that business. The other thing is spread of the customers. What about the groups of customers? How do you group your customers? Do you know how much comes from wholesaling, how much comes from retail, depending on what. If you're trade, do you know how much is coming from the builders, how much is coming from general public? And that general public, can you split it in further demographics? So you may going to figure out that the waterfront properties bring you more money than anything else. So why advertise in the other places? Just hit the waterfront properties. So, but when it comes to selling businesses, we got this information now that we can demonstrate the business. And guess what happens? When the buyer understands something, their confidence in running successfully that particular anything, doing anything, better understanding brings you confidence in your ability to do it. So if I understand the business better, which books and records help me do it, then I'm more confident that I can actually carry on and run it further. Super important. Like so many times we see the books, they are done on very, very basic level. Yeah, it tells me how much profit to some degree, but I really have to dig down to understand it. But it doesn't tell me anything else about the business. You mentioned stuff like, where the owner's wage has to go. Is it cost of sales or is it operation? I see manufacturing businesses where the cost of sales is actually in operation. So I actually don't know what my GP is because, yes, I buy material for 20%, but I have to add the labor to it, and it's in the wrong place. And it's virtually, everything is possible, but you got to spend days, hours, months to actually get to the bottom of what the business does to give accurate picture, just because the books were not done from the very beginning correctly.
Yeah. And, for the listeners, I'm going to say the time to rectify this stuff is now. And a lot of business owners would be listening to this and go, well, actually, I haven't even looked at the profit and loss ever. Like, I just look at the bank account. That's the fast track to bankruptcy. But the time to start is now. And and it's like, well, then how long is it going to take to really get this done? It's a journey, yeah? So it starts with a step. Actually, this stuff is not hard for us. This is what we do every day of the week. But it's about getting in there with us with the numbers so that we can shine the light and begin to rearrange things. And before you know it, it's all working and it's beautiful and it looks good. And I'm not asking you to do anything that I don't do personally myself. I want you to do the things that I do. Like, for example, I calculate and pay my superannuation monthly. So I force all my clients to do that because it's a better way to do it.
And look, balance sheet is also very important. And small to medium businesses, it's always a dog's breakfast. Like it's just not accurate. And the balance sheet can give you a lot of feedback about, often businesses come to us and a lot of cash is actually tied up in the balance sheet. And, like, what's your stock turnover? So if sometimes before taking business to the market, by sorting out your receivables, payables, getting a better stock control in it, which balance sheet is going to give you really, really good feedback on, you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars from your balance sheet into your P&L and then into your pocket as a profit, as a real cash. And it's not going to affect your price. So you're still going to sell for the same price, but you took the money in advance. But why having all this cash tied up in the working capital when it doesn't have to be? Another thing is work in progress. How do you actually record your work in progress? And is it accurately reflected in both P&L and the balance sheet? Forget selling of the business. Your running of the business is going to be much easier if you got a good view of the business. And then when it comes to selling a business, the buyers as well can have exactly the same view in the business. Also, you're budgeting forward. When you got a good balance sheet and P&L and all books and records, it's so much easier and so much better and so much more accurate, because a lot of people got no idea what they're going to make over the next, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and they just hope for the best. But if you actually got a good records, you could look at your P&L and your balance sheet against the budgets all the time and exactly know if you're on the track, if you're ahead or you're behind. Like, it's crucially important for running of the business. But if the business is run that way, it becomes more sellable business. It becomes more valuable business as well.
Yeah. And look, because I have a 5-step ops model that helps business owners beyond the numbers, right? And it goes plan, then team, marketing, selling, systems. And once you've got the plan in place, like how to generate revenue and your pricing systems, etc., that strategic bookkeeper on your team to help you to actually be able to see how your business is performing in terms of profit and cash, and then how to optimize it, is just so critical to all of this. And so the question I get asked, Zoran, quite regularly is a couple of things. What's my business worth and where would I even start if I wanted to sell it?
Oh, okay. There's like 10 podcast episodes in those two questions, but all right. What's my business worth? There are two parts to the business, all right? Value of the business. One is it's the financial part, how much money the business makes and how much cash flow you need to operate that business. The other part is non-financial, which is how much risk the buyer is entering in when they purchase that business. So what drives price is combination of profit and risk associated with that business. So now, again, what the profit is, well, it's not what it says on your tax return, because that needs to be adjusted, because you've got a lot of, tax minimizations strategies that you're going to do. So what your tax return or your financial tax return shows is how much taxable income you have made, not how much income you have made. So that needs to be adjusted to get to the profit. And then we got to say, well, okay, how much do I as a business owner work in this business? And that has an impact on the valuation. So then we arrive to some number, whatever that number is, as a profit after the owner's wage. Then that number, and I'm really simplifying this, all right? So it's a little bit more complex than that. But then buyer will look at the return on their investment. So they're going to say, okay, if I make X and I'm happy with 30% return, how much am I going to pay for this business for that profit to represent 30% return? And that's in a nutshell how the buyer would value the business. Now, what return am I going to be happy with? 10 or 20 or 50, or I want 100% return? It depends on the risk of the business. So if it's a very, very risky business, which means if I enter the business and there's a good chance they're going to lose. Let me give you an example. Let's say business generates income of $1 million and he's got, say, 10 customers, out of which each one represents $100,000. And then we got the same business in the same area, but he's got only one customer and $1 million comes from one customer. Obviously, the one that with the one customer, he carries more risk, because if I lose a customer, I lost the business.
Thank you for clarifying.
Out of 10, I lost only 10% of the business.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of segments or a lot of portions of the business that you got to look at it like that and assess the risk for each of them, customer spread, reliance on the owner, complexity of the work, key personnel, the list goes on. All right.
Lots of things. Yeah.
So it's virtually impossible to tell you, to give you formula. Not virtually, it is impossible to give you accurate formula to say that's how you calculate the business. So that was the first part of the question. How much is my business worth? All right. So, well, you got to look at every single one individually and have a look what profit that business creates and what risk it carries. Now, that doesn't mean that if business doesn't create any profit, that it's got no value. All right. So take, for example, transport business. It's got $2 million worth of trucks and it's losing money. Well, those trucks worth money. So that's your value. But on top of that, maybe that for one reason or the other, because the depot is too expensive to run, cost us $200,000 a year. And we had some problems because we couldn't get the staff, and that's why we're losing number. But we do have 1,000 customers that they're using us. So somebody will pay for those 1,000 customers as well on top of the equipment. So every business got a value. It's just where the value lies needs to be really investigated in more details. Now, what people often do is it's not what the business is worth, but what business owes me, and that's what I want in return. So you got to be very, very pragmatic and very technical about the valuation and not emotional. It's not how many years you put in this business, but what that business is worth to the buyer. Maybe you're looking at your business emotionally, and we all do because we spend a lot of time and it becomes our entity. We identify with that. But the buyer doesn't look at it like that because they don't have an emotional connection. They're looking purely on the economical, from economics point of view, and what's the return on investment that I'm going to get. Because I mean, it's not a beautiful house. It's not a farm. It's not a weekender. Like, I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm buying a business to make money.
It's an investment. Yeah.
What was the second part?
Yeah. So that was just, how would I even go about selling my business?
How you would go sell it? Very easy. You give us a call and we do it all for you.
And do you know,
I want to expand on that. That was a bit of a joke. All right. Look, first thing that you got to do is really make sure in your mind that you want to sell the business. Because the process of selling a business, it's not easy process. It's very emotional process. And if you go half prepared and with a half decision, okay, let's take a business to the market and see what happens, the chances are it's going to have a bad impact on your business. Why? Because you may going to have to invest in the new equipment, but you're going to decide not to because you're selling a business. And then business doesn't sell, but that impacted you because for 6 months you were working with all the equipment and you were not productive. That's one example. So you really have to decide why you're selling a business, investigate why you're selling a business. And once when you're really certain about, yes, I want to sell the business, the first thing is to get a really accurate valuation of your business. So whatever the reason is for you that you want to sell the business, it has to match that whatever money that you're going to get from proceeds you're going to get from selling of the business has to be able to enable you to do whatever you need to do. If those two things don't work together, maybe you have to look at for plan B, whatever that is. All right. Now, if you're selling a business because you want to retire, you reach that time in your life that you want to move on and you don't want to run the business anymore, well, you got to say, well, what do I want to do after I sell the business? And how much money do I need to? I assume you got other investments, other money. You made the money through business and you invested it. But what portion of this retirement funds will come from sale of the business? And then make sure when you sell the business, you're going to get that money in order to do what you want to do. So once when you've done that and you know that you got a realistic, and I stress realistic price in mind and calculated price, that's when you take a business to the market. Now, even that, it's a little bit stressful, all right? But in our terms, when we're selling a business, there's three ways you can find a buyer for the business. One is going directly to people. So if I got a transport company, I'm going to go to other transport companies. If I got a bookkeeping company, I'm going to go to other bookkeeping companies. Number two is you can market the business, and there are some platforms and places that, businesses go for sale. And number three is, in our case, we got a really, really large database. We got approximately 50,000 active buyers on our database. So we go to them. So we're talking not exit, because exit you can do management buyout. And what about we're saying selling a business on open market? These are three ways you can do it, or we do it. We go to our database. We know who looked at it in the past and what type of businesses they look at, and we match them. Number two is advertising. And number three is direct approach other people in the industry. What happens when we start talking about the direct approach of other people in the industry? That includes people that are not direct competitors, but also direct competitors. And that's where people get a little bit nervous. I have to open up my books to my direct competitor. And the answer is yes, but they're the ones that are going to pay most of the money because it worth more to them than anybody else. And we can talk on and on and on about it, but this is as much as I can give you in a short period of time how to go about it.
Yeah, that's given me some really good info. But what you said about, look, all the business owners I work with, when it comes to the idea of selling their business, they are, very, very, very emotional. But I see it with people that own their houses too. And, you hear people say, well, I know that my house or my business is worth this. And I think, do you know what? Everything's worth what somebody will pay for it, number one. Yeah. I think that's where, look, I use the electrician analogy where the electrician comes to my house. I don't try and get involved with what he's doing because I have no idea. And with selling your business, I think the advice that you've given us is amazing. And I know you've got a book, so I'll be mentioning that. So the 7-step guide to selling your business, which I'm sure helps to prepare you. But I think once you've done the things that you talked about there, then you do kind of have to put yourself in the hands of that professional like yourself. And I know that professionals in this industry are far and few between, like really great, ethical people like yourself, which is why I'm, thrilled to have you in my little black book and be able to refer you. But I think putting yourself in that person's hands and just saying, guide me, and I'm going to do what I'm told. I say that to my clients. If you do what I tell you, if you follow the systems I give you, life will be easy. If you try and do my job for me, life will be hard. So I think listening to the professional and doing what you're told.
Okay, there's a bit of a challenge there. It's right what you said. Look, there's a joke in our industry. The fastest way to value the business is to ask the owner what they want for it and then half it. And it's amazing. It's amazing how accurate that is. Try it next time. Anyway,
wow.
but from the seller's point of view, business owner who wants to sell the business, how do I know that the person on the other end is giving me fair and accurate advice? Because I want as much as I can get. And you naturally gravitate towards a person that's going to tell you that they can get more for their business, because what if they can? Now, often we do the valuation and they go to their accountants, and then their accountants actually say, well, no, this is not a $3 million. We think it's a $6 million or $5 million business. And Well, who do you trust? Do you trust a broker or somebody who's regularly selling businesses doing 100 deals a year? Or do I trust accountant that I've been with for 20 years? And it's a fair question. And I get the dilemma. Now, not all accountants, but sometimes accountants will have this conflict of interest because they want best for you. And they also know you very well. So they don't want to be the bearer of the bad news. So they're going to kind of say, well, if I price it higher, what's the damage? All right. Much better than lower and then losing the money when you sell it for too cheap. Now, there is a damage because if you go on the business too high, no one's going to even put the offer, because if I've got a business that I'm selling for 3 million, say, all right, doesn't matter what the number is, but the business is worth half of that, 1.5 million, no one's going to put the offer. The price gap is so big that people either think it's not serious or they're embarrassed even to actually put the offer. They really can't themselves to do it. So they walk away from the deal. So what happens? That business sits on the market for a year and a half. And when you see anything being sold, anything, house, business, car, anything, for that long, what's the first thing you think? What's wrong with it? Why didn't sell?
What's wrong with it? Exactly. Yeah.
And nothing was wrong with it except that it was overpriced. And that's why it's important to price it right. Now, what I say to people, get as many valuations as you can. Look at them. And then the ones that go with the one that you think is going to do the best job for you. But if something looks too good to be true, you need to examine it further. And the best way to examine it, ask yourself, knowing what I know about my business, and if I'm buying a business, would I pay this price? If the answer is no, don't expect anybody else to do it. If the answer is yes, right away, oh man, this is bargain, well, then you're too cheap. The answer has to be, well, okay, this seems all right, but I really want to investigate this properly. That's the answer that you're looking at. And if you go through that emotional exercise, you will get to the right price. Don't fall in that trap that there's but what if there's a fool out there and they're going to pay a lot of money for my business? They won't understand it. They won't see all the problems and all the issues and all the complexity of it. I've been doing this for close to 20 years now. I've seen these silly prices maybe once or twice or 3 times in 20 years. We sold thousands of businesses. So the chances of getting lucky is less than 1%. It's point something, all right? Chances of making a mistake with going this approach with overpricing business is 99%. So your odds are not in your favor. It has to be priced accurately. And not only that, the whole process is going to be faster and better, but also by having accurate price, you can make accurate planning for your future. If I tell you that you can, for something that's worth $1 million, I'll tell you that you can get $2 million. You spend it in your head already. And then you feel like you just lost it, but you didn't lose anything, Very, very emotional stuff. Sorry, I got a bit but
I'm someone who's quite hard to offend because I like information, and so if I have information, right, I think I can act. And when I get the wrong information, for example, $1 million business is worth 2 million, that upsets me because I'm going to begin to act based on information that I have. And I think that's where, even though we can be emotional, if somebody gives us some information and it's constructive criticism or it's hard to hear or whatever it is, for me, it's like the gift of honesty and the gift of information.
So two more tips on that. If you're looking for the valuation of the business, be wary of valuations that only look at the financials. And they don't look at the risk part of the business, non-financials. So somebody just puts a few numbers on the spreadsheets and gives it to you without spending, an hour or 2 hours talking to you, asking a lot of questions about your business, really getting to understand your business. How accurate can it be if I don't understand where the risks of your business are? Another one, make sure that if you're in a position of selling a business or contemplating on selling a business or planning for the future, whoever gives you valuation, make sure that there's some comparable sales, there are some comparable data, that whatever assumptions are made, they have some backing and explained why am I thinking. So if I say 5 times whatever, all right, why 5? Why not 4? Why 3? What are we multiplying? And what's the evidence that is actually happening on the market, that people are paying this money? And how accurate is that evidence? I've seen a lot of valuations. We do about, probably 50, 60 certified valuations a year. and they're like for courts and expert witnesses and all sorts of stuff. And I see valuations, they're done with base as a comparison using businesses on the stock exchange. I mean, like, it's a small business, and we use PHP to compare. I mean, this is totally different asset class altogether, all right?
Yeah.
So they've got some way of discounting that. No, look, if you're selling a chicken shop, have a look how much chicken shops are selling. If you're selling a manufacturing business, they're generating $1 million in revenue. Have a look how much manufacturing businesses with a similar revenue are generating, and then get into details of these businesses to understand what risk was associated with that and compare with the subject business together with experience. So like, if you're aware of that, you'll be able to distinguish good report to very basic report. And also the valuations are a combination of exact science and a little bit of, soft art. So a lot of subjective and experience from the person performing valuation comes into play as well.
I guess, yeah, like anything. And I think the whole, if it sounds too good to be true, because over the years, I found it a bit heartbreaking when I get clients who are in a bit of trouble and a broker comes along and tells them that they're going to be able to sell their business. And I mean, they don't even look at the P&L. They just say, and I know it's way too good to be true. And what happens, a bit like with real estate agents, and I was in this situation with my sisters recently, people want to choose the broker that's telling them what they want to hear sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're stealing their time. And for me, time is wealth. Time rich is the new rich. So they're stealing your time. They're giving you inaccurate information, and we know how I feel about that. And so back to, if it sounds too good to be true, and then even though I say, hey, in one scenario a few years ago, the dad of a client said, well, Jeannie, we'll just sell it. He was the first person that's ever listened to me. And I said, no, you won't. Nobody's buying it. Like, there was no assets. There was no nothing. And it was bleeding money. And the rent as a percentage of turnover wasn't sustainable, right? Even for me, it's like, there is nothing there. So please don't go and get a broker that tells you you can do this, sign a new lease, you know what I mean, and then bleed another $500,000. It's fine, go to a broker like yourself, absolutely. And get some accurate information. So the idea that I can work with someone like you that will do a thorough needs analysis.
From the seller's point of view, a business owner's point of view, not just business broking, but anything, how do I know that the advice that's given to me, it's accurate? Well, you know it. Come on, you've been in the business 10, 15 years. You've met a lot of people. You've done a lot of deals. Use your intuition, not your emotion, intuition. Does this make sense or doesn't make sense? And most of the people can actually make a difference between real thing and, smoke.
Yeah.
And you said something like, you get a broker that told you what you want to hear. You need a broker that's going to tell you what you need to know. So you can make a decision, accurate decision. Look, in what we do often, we give people advice of what the business is worth. And they said, look, if this is a business, if that's what the business is worth, I just can't sell it. That's not an option.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. And 5, 6, 10 years later, they're going to come back and they're going to be better business, and we're going to do the business when we need.
Yes.
See, the transaction in our world has to be good for 3 people. Has to be good for buyer, seller, and for the broker. If any of us suffers, that's not a fair transaction. Somebody got, somebody lost out, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, but I love that too about, like, some years ago, an accountant said, I want to buy your business, and I said, well, then what would you be willing to give me? And whatever he said he would give me, it was like, well, no, I'd rather give it to a friend. But it's like, that doesn't mean you'll never sell your business, right? It means that I'm not ready. That's not what I want for it. And I know my family went through that. They, early on when they opened the business that we had up here, were like, this is not what we wanted. It's getting too big too fast. Let's just sell it. Really, they couldn't get price that they thought was commensurate with what they'd built. So at the time they were told, well, if you want the price you want, here's what you're going to have to do. And they spent 5 years doing it, and they got the price, right? It's, again, information. If we are armed with information, we can make decisions. Yeah.
Correct. Look, that dilemma is never going to go away. It's going to be here forever, and it's up to the owner to make a right decision, who's leading him the right way and who's got their best interest in mind, not your best interest in mind.
Yeah, it's just that sometimes I see situations with business owners where they've got a really great, profitable business that they have, invested in systems and everything, but for whatever reason, it's not suiting their lifestyle, for example. Maybe they're just in a new place, and I see it go on for a while, and I think they are better off having a conversation with someone like yourself around what it looks like to exit that business, because again, at least they're armed with information. Yeah.
Just on this thing, like there is a difference when you take a business to the market, and there is a difference when somebody approaches you. So when people approach you, they may gonna, just looking for the bargain. And like you said, in your case, or somebody offers you, well, I'll buy the business. I'm not really serious, but if I get a bargain, I'll take it. But sometimes when people approach you, they may gonna pay more because it's got a strategic value to them. It's impossible without knowing their business to actually evaluate the strategic value for somebody else, because you need to know their position, and they're gonna keep that close to their heart. Now, one advice I can give people, if you're ever approached, say, listen, we're interested in buying a business. I always say go with the price on the market, but this is one time that you should not put a price on it. So you do something like this. Say to them, look, thanks. I'm really flattered that you approached me to purchase my business. However, I've got a long-term plan for my business, and I'm not interested in selling now. However, we're all grown-ups, right? And everything is for sale. This price is right. So tell me all the information that you need, and I will provide it for you. And let's put a timetable. Let's say in 2 weeks, you're going to come back to me with the price, and I'm going to do one of the two things. I'm going to go and say yes, and we're going to do the deal, or I'm going to say, and you're going to go away so I can focus on running my business. However, don't come back to me with the fair market value, because I can do that anytime. You have to give me more to entice me to sell now.
That makes sense.
Give them all information, give them a reasonable but not too long period of time to come back, and be true to your word. Get the offer, and if it's yes, do it. If it's no, just move on.
Yeah. That makes total sense. Yeah, but I love the way that you looked at it. Okay, Zoran, to wrap up, tell us where we can find you, which will all be in the show notes as well.
Well, the easiest way is just go to our website, which is exclusive.com.au. It's spelled XCLLUSIVE.com.au.
All right, it will be in the show notes. And for me personally, it is very hard to find a business broker of this caliber, and so Zoran will definitely be in my little black book. And if you lose his details, you can just contact me because I keep that little black book very organized for myself as much as I do for my beautiful community. So Zoran, thank you for coming on the show today. It was amazing.
Thank you very much, Jeannie. It was super good talking to you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. I would love to help you start doing better in business right now by giving you a free little ebook. It's a how-to guide. It's called The 7 Deadly Cash Flow Sins. And also I've developed a business health check for you. It's super high value. Both are available at betterinbusiness.global. If you would like to fire your bookkeeper and hire a strategic bookkeeper to start enjoying a return on investment and get the support you need to optimize your business cash and profit and time wealth, simply visit betterinbusiness.global, drop me a line, and I'll connect you with a certified strategic bookkeeper near you. I'll see you in the next episode.